let's see how this is gonna go. Yeah, I'm doing this as a bit of an extra credit assignment, okay? So to start it off, I'm gonna have to do a few things. I'll probably edit them in later and just mute this part, but let's see how this goes. Okay, let's see how it goes, how I'm gonna do here, and I'm gonna be doing this as a history lesson to go by. Okay, so welcome everyone. I will be literally explaining this as best I can. Okay, so we're gonna start off with not the pendulums, no, those are gonna be toward the next part of it. Yes, they're a big part of why this deck is historical, but they're not actually the main reason that they are historical. So let's explain it like this. Yes, they're a part of the history that comes from it, like with all the names, but the reason that I feel it's more historical is something else. So the triple D or D/D/D archetype comes originally from many different historical cards. So the thing is, unlike in the past where they're the modernized versions of these cards, these triple D versions could be considered the original way they were seen. So let's say, for instance, Oracle King Diark. The actual historical figure coming from this is Joan d'Arc, which, if anybody really knows, she did not have a good light. Yes, yes, she was a kind-hearted person, yes, all that, but there's really no evidence to support she was treated kindly during her time. More than likely, you would see her under the term heretic or religious despot or something like that. Most people in the army considered her a necessary evil, but as you can see, the effect does go back to that, where she was supported by the church, and thus by being supported by the church, anything done badly to the army themselves would have been a gain for the church to take what they wanted. Yes, that is true. Back during the time of this historical figure, people would be losing things constantly, and that's one part of it. Wave High King Caesar. This one does not mean Julius Caesar. It does not. I believe this is referencing back to Octavian, Augustus Caesar. Now, if you really want to see why that goes through, Octavian as a whole, okay, Augustus Caesar was the first one to really branch out with his navy. During this time, he did go ahead and make the triumvirate. However, the triumvirate slowly broke down, and if you really want to put it into simple terms, the triumvirate started trying to find other places to take over, each separating, taking their own part. Mark Antony died to Octavian's navy. The Wave King and Wave High King reference that, in Wave King being the beginning of the navy, Wave High King showing it from Augustus going from Octavian to Augustus, as in from one part of a three-part ruling class to a ruling member of said class. So that's going to be through that. As you can see, the people through that time, they wouldn't have taken it lightly. They would have seen it immediately as a treasonous act. Does that mean they would have stopped it knowing what was coming to them if they did? No. It's just he was emperor at that point. No one's going to stop you once you have that much. Flame King and Flame High King Genghis. Okay, this one's a little bit of a difference. Okay, so Genghis Khan is known by many names. Among them, some of the more diverse names that have been given out but mainly he is shown through a very simple thing, okay? Invasion, plundering, all of that. The actual way this card system works with this one, which the effect does go back to it, is very odd, because anytime you bring up a lesser monster, let's say this, you have a lesser or a equal monster, okay, let's say the DDs are the lessers, the little minions, the triple Ds are the kings, right? All of those, all the higher ups. Anytime they show up, he can bring another one back. That's actually referenced back in his way of warfare. During his time versus a lot of separate places he pillaged, places he took over, and places he attempted to, there was moments where a small group or a small person helped him gain an entire new ally. That's referenced back in both Flame High King and Flame King. High King being him at his height of power, where he could literally get anyone and grow his army more. Flame King would reference back to his usage of only higher-ups to gain back smaller members. So yes, that is another one. Stone King Darius. Darius as in, once again, another historical figure. Darius, forget what actual one through it. I believe it's going to be the... Oh, and I can't remember. My brain's wiping on that. Darius, throughout the whole terminology for him right now, he does show up biblically. But the thing is, Darius has a bit of a rocky personality, I guess you could say. So, in the biblical terms, Darius has one way. In historical terms, it's kind of matching and kind of not. Okay, so Darius was a conqueror. Let's leave it at that. He was good at what he does, right? But the way he's summoned and the way his effect goes both match up to what he is. So his kingdom and his reign was built off of a nation that took over another one. That's how it goes through when 2 level 3s make the him, and thus you get what you need. However, his effect, I will say this right now, his effect goes through to a biblical story. I won't go into detail regarding it because that's not actually the point of it. But if someone was against Darius, there was always a point, even historically it is shown, there is a point where he would remove the person and thus ending it right there. So on top of that, his effect to detaching material relates back to his signet ring, because it cannot be destroyed by battle and the other person takes it. So that's historical. The signet ring is a historical item all of them use. However, the fact that the opponent's monster is destroyed goes back to biblical. During the time of Darius, I believe it was Daniel. The book of Daniel does show it going back into that. So we have that one going through now, and let me check if I can find something else here, because I did have them in order and suddenly I just lost it all. Okay, so Gus King Alexander. Oh, the stuff I could say on this one. So Gus King Alexander has yet another one to go through. So Alexander the Great, among being one of the greatest generals of all time, he is also known as one of the people to conquer pretty much the entire known world at his time. If you want to go in deeper, he not only did this, he took over the Greeks, but the term Gus King once again references an event. So Gus King Alexander goes back and refers to his usage, or one of his usages during warfare. So in one of his fights, I believe it's against the Greeks, he was able to use weather to his advantage. Again, that is something to go through. However, his effect is yet another way to do this. So his effect says if another deity monster, which is a lesser general, if you want to call it that, okay, is summoned or special summoned, you can then revive a level 4 lower. This is something to go through because you have Alexander the Great leading the armies. When one of his lowers shows up, another one pops up. Both of them together brought in a bunch of reinforcements. On top of that, they brought help. That is a historical event. One of the biggest battles happened through that. I'm going to keep on moving through this so I can at least get through a little bit more. Abyss King Gilgamesh. Okay, so the Epic of Gilgamesh. The reason I'm putting this one in here is the main reason that I'm going to go into for the main part of this. Okay, so Abyss King Gilgamesh, and we'll get back to that one in a second. So Abyss King Gilgamesh, Rebel King Leonidas. I'm going to say this because there is a reasoning behind this. Okay, Leonidas is a historical figure. He happened, right? He did happen. However, the reason he is in the pendulum part of the archetype is because he's also a part of mythology. Yes, he is a historical figure. Yes, you've seen movies with him, all that. However, due to how his story is so muddled, they had to add in something to the mythology. So his effect states, if you take an effect damage, any effect damage, you can then summon him. That goes back to his own defining battle. If anyone's seen the movie 300, that is his moment. Okay, that is his moment, and basically you will see that as a part of a few of these actually. So there's that one, Rebel King Leonidas, into the next one. Duodong King Kali Yuga. Okay, Kali Yuga as a whole goes back to another one off of that. So historically, Kali Yuga was a dictator. You can see that in how his effect goes through, as well as his dictatorial ways in how it ends up. So if you really want to see it, Kali Yuga would detain, dethrone, yada yada yada, all that, right? It's easily found and easily completed, right? But then we're gonna go to stuff like this, Beowulf. Well, I'm gonna put this through. This is another one of the mythological origins. However, it does affect the background for the whole thing. So the mythological part does affect a nation's background. Okay, so Beowulf, while being a mythological moment, does have significance on the history of the nation he comes from. So that's the thing that came off of this. However, while being called Dragonbane does relate to the myth, his usage in the effect relates to how he inspired, or the story inspired, the group of people that he's under. Now, I'm going to go through, I believe that's it for those. It's just Gilgamesh. So, with the Abyss King Gilgamesh, there is a reason that the Epic of Gilgamesh is so prominent as per this deck. Once the link card shown was added, you had instant access to every philosopher card in this deck in your back row. What can be called the spell and trap card zone, you can place the pendulum monsters necessary and go from there. There is a reason behind this. The Epic of Gilgamesh does affect all of that. Give me a second, guys. The Epic of Gilgamesh is one of those rulings that affects any and all of the people involved in it. Surprisingly, a lot of our documents regarding the historical views on religion started off with the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was the first one. First philosophy to show up in terms of history. That's actually why every single thing built off of this one, from mythology to this to that, has its place in the Epic of Gilgamesh to start off. So stuff like Cerberus, Lilith, Orthros, all of the pendulums you can see here, all come from Gilgamesh himself. Every one of them, 7 Thomas, everything. Now, to get this into perspective, I'm going to show through some of these, okay? So it's the ones that do relate to the philosophers. So, Saint Nicola. Nicola was indeed a Russian philosopher. You can go ahead and call him a savant, but due to his fact that, yes, he was indeed a savant. A savant as being defined as a genius level person. Okay? He was indeed a genius. However, he was a genius in one area. Okay? Remember that, because this does go back. If anyone's wondering, there are cars out there that were first inspired by this man, Nikola Tesla. We'll go down one more, Saint Thomas, as in Thomas Edison. Another historical one. However, the reason he is a part of the deck goes back to the same reasoning. Saint Thomas features as Thomas Edison, and his effect doesn't use it. So Edison was indeed, while being a very cruel and unusual person, this deck shows him as someone who was both necessary and unnecessary, okay? Let's say trading power for power and trading help for help, right? Saint Newton. Isaac Newton's right here, and again, it does relate back to it. If you notice, there's a lot of science and a lot of philosophy in here, but they're all called savants. As in, they are geniuses at the same time as being what they are. Galilei, as in Galileo Galilei. Can't pronounce that right to save my life, but yeah. So, Galileo Galilei, while being a person who did watch the stars, during his time he was treated as a crazy person. So that is why a lot of his effect runs around returning stuff, because he would go back on his word more often than not, in lieu of not being called what he is. So Galileo Galilei also has one of 2 monsters with an effect that slowly higher or slowly lowers his importance. So the pendulum scale being higher for him is throughout the centuries he's been increased in fame and all that. So that does go through. Kepler. If anyone has seen a stargazing anything, Kepler's one of the top ones. Another savant. As shown, his early parts are shown in his regular effect. Instantly gain something from it so that you may continue. He would be considered a forerunner for Galileo Galilei. However, just as that shows, Kepler dropped in importance while Galileo increased. As Copernicus, another very important philosopher, and as shown through the 7th arc of it. So as shown right here, he is indeed another one to go through. So if it's normal or special summoned, you can then, however, send one of the others to the graveyard. This likely goes back to his constant movement onto new things. Copernicus, while being a very influential person in the community of what he is, he moved on quickly to this, to that, to this. It's common with most genius level people. They can't keep themselves in one place. I will be right back, everybody.
For anyone still here, thank you for dealing with my babbling about history in card games face with tears of joy.
And I am back. Okay, I accidentally pressed that, didn't I? Okay, so yes, now with Copernicus' other effect, it's tied back to his teachings. Okay, so he can only bring out lesser ones. So that's what the card said. It doesn't really work like that, but he can only bring out ones who he has influence over. Copernicus was not so much a big name helper. Like, he wasn't up there teaching kings, he was mostly with the younger ones, okay? Now, if we're gonna keep on going through that, let me see. Oh yeah, High King, Wave, Oblivion King. This one I forgot to put in, that one I forgot to put in, but as you can see, there is a lot of stuff here, a lot of history built into these cards, okay? Wave King Caesar, Wave Oblivion King, Caesar, a lot of, like, this one I could even say, Caesar Ragnarok. This one would be the ending to the self-destructive ending to the entire line of Caesars. Yes, it does happen. Yes, it went through just hiking. This would be Alexander at his peak before the fall. Okay? When he had everything and still went out. Right? Cursed King Siegfried. Again, it goes back to the legend and what the legend means throughout history. Marksman King Tell. Gotta love the stories regarding this, okay? So, there are stuff all over this archetype that do bring forth historical accuracy and historical inaccuracy. But at the same time, they have everything built in to make it so that it's not so much like other decks where it's modern day, it's this, it's that. It's basically a lot of stuff you see nowadays. If you, let's say that if you see Joan of Arc, okay, let me look up this right here. Joan of Arc. I'm searching it up on the top so it can't be seen, but yeah. Joan, yeah, Joan, just put in Joan, okay? This is what you get for Joan of Arc. More often than not, right? More often than not, you get this look, right? That is modern day. That is how she is seen now. If you really want to know, she's seen as a kind, caring, good person. But this card right here, when I'm typing in D-Arc, was how she was seen during her time. Unnecessary evil. It's why the church cut her down. It's why after all the war was done, she was indeed burned at the stake. She was indeed had all that happen to her. Let me look up another one. So, we already saw, I think, Caesar. We saw Caesar on here. Now, if you want to go through that, there are other cards such as, oh yeah. So we got Caesar, we got a few of these. So let me look if I can find this deck in here. Hopefully I can. Yes, okay, so Ancient Warrior. Okay? A lot of these go back to the same thing. Like, see? Yes, it says Beast Warrior, but there's a difference off of it, right? Double Dragon Lords. That's basically the people who would fight on the other end of it, right? Sun Mu. All of these go back. A lot of times people don't really care to look into their decks. They don't care to do stuff like that. They're like, hey, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool, but even a game built for children has historical accuracy in the background. And inaccuracy, I'll give it that. But when they start going through and thinking on this and making such great stuff, even I can say, like, hey, this is some good, beautiful cards. This is what you do with something like this, right? I'm going to say this right now. The only reason I'm not doing Sword Soul is because I don't want to. But if you look at these cards, they are all built to be something. Despian, as in the act of Despia, right? All of that going through. Gravekeepers are all tied to Egyptian people, like actual jobs and all that, right? It's all over the decks. I just did one archetype alone, and I could do so many more. I could find historical accuracy and historical inaccuracy. But that's coming from someone who has looked into it, has loved doing stuff like this for anybody, okay? I know I'm not the best one to go to for this because everyone has their little niche, I guess I could say, right? But if you really want to think about it, I'm someone who loves the fact that a game for children is trying to teach the children without having to. Okay? So let me explain it in a way to actually finish up this entire thing. Okay? This game, to me, is like having a literal way for children to learn their history if they're willing to take a look. Okay? They can find so much if they choose their favorite cards. And I know it's sad to say, but a lot of times people will not want to find something. They won't want to learn. But once they start to look into the cards they love playing, once they start to go into all that, they'll find something that they can latch on to. Yes, it's a game for children, right? Yes, it's a game for children. But if you really think about it, it's teaching them something that they would rather go ahead and learn. It's teaching them something to latch onto for later in life. Okay? Yes, it's not always an exact look, but just like I said, I love my art tats. I love Triple D, Double D. I love all of them. I play my cards with heart. With the heart for my cards for my gameplay, right? You've seen my other my viewers have seen my other streams. I get out of hand with playing heroes. But if you really want to think about it, that leads from young to old. As a kid, I loved playing heroes. As an adult, I still love it. And I want to make something to go ahead and put it out. As a teen, I love the historical accuracy and inaccuracy, some of it, of Double D and Triple D. As an adult, I'm a history buff. Okay? Because I took the time to look into it. As a child, you want one thing. As an adult, it all builds up to what you are. That's a philosophy to go by. As a child will play this card, I will say it right now. They won't be able to say the words, but they'll learn from it. They'll want to go ahead and see why this word is what it is. And leading with that will lead them to the next one. Proskenion, I'm gonna look that up right now, okay? Just to show you a little bit on what I'm gonna do here and what I usually do. So Proskenion. If I butchered that name, I'm sorry. I'm just looking it up right now too. Okay, so Proskenion is a Hellenistic word meaning the raised theater. So the raised platform from the scheme. In other words, it's the theater area and how the actors would be raised in front of it. So let's say this. So there's an archway, and that's the proskenion. The archway where an actor would act for a current play is that. That's Hellenistic, by the way. Again, beautiful word there, right? Dramaturge. That's a type of play. Quaeritus, okay? All part of this simple children's card game. I can't even say half of these words because I'm not a drama nut, but yes, okay? So the full term is a quem quaeritus. It's a question from a medieval liturgy in Easter. Meaning, you will find this in a play regarding an interrogation. Okay? It's 4 lines. And it literally made all of this. Tragedy, comedy, everything, right? Jester, dramaturge. Again, this is just a few cards on this entire thing, okay? That little by little builds up a love of history. a love of the cards that will build it within people. I'm not saying, hey, you go ahead, buy the cards, do all that. No, I know they're expensive, okay? You ain't gonna find these easy, okay? But does that mean you can't get them? Like, no. You can do what you want, but having a game like this, free of charge, free everything, it's like bringing a whole game built for people who want to go ahead and find a different way to learn. You want to find what you're doing and learn from it? I say go here. You want to find out some historical facts? Try looking at your cards next time, right? If, in simple terms, I know how people are going to act. I know how they're going to say, something like this can't teach you anything. But a little piece like this, that I just showed you, Proskenian, everything, dramaturge, all that, right? I bet you didn't even know what it was. Or the fact that these right here specifically tie back to it. That the effects tie back to it. I bet you didn't know that. Because just like a rage stage, that right there says whichever is higher is dealt back. It's all in the entirety of the game. I'm ending it here. Thank you for going ahead watching. I'm sorry if I took a little bit away from like Double D, Triple D. It's just I wanted to get the point driven right home. Yes, it's a card game. Yes, it's for children. But it's teaching. It's teaching kids a lot more than their schools right now. I know that because right now I can tell you no kid will pick up this card out of a pack and know what it is until they decide to look it up. They will see what it is through researching it themselves. And they'll learn, at least at the time they'll learn, and then they'll pick it up later. That's it. We're ending the stream here. Hey guys, thank you for going through with this. I know it was like a 40-minute stream, but that's fine. We're done here. And let's hope this grade can go up with this, right? Let's hope I can up it a little bit, and I'll get back to you guys later. Thanks.